Welcome to the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. I'm your host, FoodTech marketing expert Megan Thomas. FoodTech Stories features the leaders pioneering new approaches to technology, collaboration, and storytelling in the food tech and ag tech space. Food and agricultural changing, and fresh ideas and leadership are needed to sustainably feed the growing global population. Join us every other week as we talk to a founder, operator, or visionary in food and agriculture. On today's episode, my guest is Ross Milne, CEO of Leaft Foods. Welcome to the podcast, Ross.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump right in. I'd love to learn about your journey in terms of what brought you into the food tech sector and what brought you to Leaft Foods.
It's probably a combination of both professional and personal. Professionally, I spent a career in the food industry, although not in startup world. I spent a career in the large end of town, building some of the largest food manufacturing facilities. A lot of time actually spent in dairy, infant formula, about 8 years based up in Europe, building facilities for all of the large companies that you would be familiar with seeing on the supermarket shelves. I probably got a very strong foundation and sort of exposure to the food industry. With that background, how do I apply that to something new in the space? Sort of serendipitously blended in with this point in my life where I became more aware about food. I, out of curiosity, decided to go plant-based and started to explore new foods and what the future might look like. That led to a little bit of a chance meeting with John and Maury and going on the journey together to build what is now Leaft Foods.
Are they the founders?
Correct. Husband and wife team also have a huge amount of experience in the food industry. We all come from the food industry. Maury's background in one of the largest dairy companies in the world, Fonterra. John also built a dairy company from a standing start, a company called Sinlay, took that through to probably capped up around 2 billion when he finished as CEO. It was a conversation around what does the future of the food system look like? Where are these economically viable options that could actually solve some of the challenges that we face in the food system today?
So you're based in New Zealand, is that correct?
Correct. Talking with you today from Christchurch, New Zealand, the South Island of New Zealand.
We've had a couple of guests from New Zealand on the podcast. So I'm aware, and the listeners are aware, that dairy is a huge industry for New Zealand. Why did you hone in on Leaft and Rubisco specifically? I'd love to learn more about Rubisco.
Probably if we sit and think through what are the potential solutions to some of those challenges that we're all very familiar with in the food system. Actually, the list is not very long. That's the first problem. Like, what do we do? And you come down to like a really small number of options. New Zealand is amazing at growing green leafy crops, green leafy pasture. There are actually many other places in the world that are similar. We sort of refer to these as these Goldilocks zones around the world. That's our natural advantage here in New Zealand, the ability to grow a lot of green leafy material per hectare of land. That's deeply ingrained in our DNA, I guess. A stumbling upon Rubisco. So could Rubisco be the answer to this? Now, Rubisco is an amazing protein. We're not familiar with it from the word. If I say to Rubisco, very few people are aware of it. But ironically, you have been consuming this protein nearly every day. Every time you have a green leaf, a lettuce leaf, a kale leaf, a spinach, this is the predominant protein that you are consuming. It's been in our diets ever since we've been human beings. There's this kind of strange situation where on one hand, our bodies are incredibly familiar with it, but we, from a media, from a marketing point of view, are not at all familiar with it. The amazing thing about it is we can grow an incredible amount of Rubisco per hectare of land. So it opens up this question of, could we actually generate a more efficient food production system? A food production system where we can grow more food per hectare of land with 97% lower carbon footprint. We're taking the animal away. We're going directly to the source. And we be the company in the world that figures out how to isolate this amazing protein. Then purely from a system point of view, we've created something that is a step change from the solutions that we have available to us today.
Why is it that the average consumer has never heard of Rubisco?
Because to take it out of a green leaf, to take that green leaf, to rip it open, to open up the plant cell, to then isolate out this Rubisco protein so we have it in a pure protein form, that part of it is really, really hard. We sit in a world where For the last 100 years, people have studied Rubisco and they have hypothesized about its use in the food production system. And they've studied it and they've looked at it and they've said, wow, this is the utopia protein. Look how amazing it is. The thing that had not happened was figuring out how to actually isolate that and put it into a format that can be used in an array of food products that we're familiar with today. So think about putting it into yogurts or baked goods or milks, all the products that you're familiar with buying in the supermarket today. That was the big technical challenge.
What can you tell us about the technology that you've developed at Leaft?
We can't tell you much because it's of
Fair.
course a secret in terms of the way that we do that. It's taken us some years. This has been a journey for 6 years now to actually develop technology that is able to isolate this Rubisco protein in a truly scalable way at yields that make economic sense. So we can put an ingredient or a product into the world that works from a protein quality point of view, but also from an economic viability point of view. And that's what we've done. And we're running that today at our manufacturing facility, 30,000 square foot facility, where we are producing consumer product. We're running this factory right now round the clock, 24 hours a day, trying to keep up with demand on our consumer product side.
Wonderful. And do you consider yourself a product company or a platform company?
We consider ourselves a technology company at the heart, developing an array of products. Our consumer product is really exemplifying Rubisco. Yes, technology platform, but we have to take Rubisco to the world and introduce it for the very first time. That's what our consumer product is designed to do. It also enables us as a company to start to flex that muscle of how do you take a product to market and how do we package it and brand it and market it and just how do we produce incredibly high quality food day in, day out. It does have a number of benefits and reasons as to why we are developing that consumer product.
And so you have a single product today, and what can you tell us about it?
So we have our consumer product. That's what's available in the market. You can go onto our Leaft Blade website and you can buy that product and you can be among the first people in the world to buy Rubisco protein. We also have an ingredient. There's two parts going on here. Our vision and our desire here is to change the food production system, to build a solution that's delivering this Rubisco protein to the world. We have to introduce it, that's what the consumer product does, but we also have to find a way to include Rubisco in a number of food products that we're not going to be experts in. For example, bakery. And for that reason, we have a B2B ingredient. We produce this ingredient, we sell it on to food formulators who are experts in those applications or those fields. And in that way, we can start to provide Rubisco to different geographical regions as well as different applications.
So you're using the two products in tandem, right, to communicate different aspects of your business, which makes sense. So the consumer product itself, you mentioned it is a protein product. What form does it come in?
A different form than what's available on the market today. And I guess this probably speaks to our crazy level of aspiration. We isolated Rubisco. We're like, oh, wow, that's super amazing. We can take it to the consumer. The sensible thing almost to do would have been to put it into a 1 kg tub of powder. We thought they were quite boring. The market is full of these tubs of protein powder that you buy, that you take home. You have to spoon out into a NutriBullet or something or a shaker. It's messy, it's inconvenient. What we saw was actually an opportunity in the market, firstly from a form factor point of view. How do we provide Rubisco in a liquid format, in a drinkable format that you can just slurp back? It's incredibly convenient. That was the first part of it. How do we provide it in an extremely high concentration? So our protein concentration is sort of 2x anything available on the market. So how do we pack as much protein as we can possibly do from a technical point of view into the smallest pouch possible? We want nutrition on the go and we want the best quality nutrition. So how do we pack that into a really small serve size? This also plays into the tailwinds that we now see in terms of GLP-1 users and appetite suppressant providing nutrition to those people. Our original thinking actually dates back before that, but it now has those additional tailwinds. We then thought, well, if we think about nutrition and nutrition from a maximum point of view, not a minimum point of view, what would we do? Well, we would actually leave all of the goodies that are in those green leaves, all of those micronutrients and all those vitamins in our final product. This is like the super greens food, met the best protein in the world, and then we squeezed it into the smallest pouch, a 100 ml pouch, so the size of your iPhone. We squeezed it in the smallest pouch that we could technically do that was possible. And that's the Leaft Blade. It's really just trying to exemplify a future in food where we treat nutrition as the maximum. We lean into the complexity of nutrition, meaning we leave all of the goodness of literally 50,000 leaves into one of those pouches. Yes, it has the protein, it has the carbohydrates, we have some fat in there, but much more importantly, there we've got a lot of bioactive peptides, we've got a lot of antioxidants. We leave all of those goodies that we've heard about for our entire lives in that product.
Certainly here in the US, consumers continue to increase their desire for protein packed foods. We also love portable foods here, as I'm sure in New Zealand and other markets you sell in. Are you positioning it then as like a snack product, or how do you think about that?
No, I think about it in terms of the product. If you truly care about nutrition for yourself, like this is the product that you should be taking. For example, wake up first thing in the morning, grab one of these and smash that back. That's like the perfect start to your day. You're getting your protein, you're getting your minerals, you're getting multivitamins. Like that is how we think about it. We're exemplifying this product at the moment with a number of elite athletes. So people that are doing ultra events, people that are running 200 kilometers or swimming between islands in the ocean. These crazy adventures where they need incredibly high nutrition on the go, and the Leaft Blade is doing that. But that's really the exemplification of what the blade can do. I take it every single morning. My family members are now taking it every single morning because we care about nutrition and we want to get through the day and we want to perform throughout the course of the day.
Right. So can you swim between islands now, or is
No.
that still coming? Okay.
Yeah. In my head, maybe, but in reality, no.
Going after kind of performance nutrition, it makes a lot of sense. And I think just having that halo effect to the average consumer, I think that's helpful. Thank you for breaking that down. I do know that there are others working in Rubisco out there. How is Leaft different from those other firms?
There's probably a few things that we really pride ourselves on. Firstly, system thinking. The start of this journey was actually how do we build an entire system? We talk about our end products, and that makes a lot of sense. In behind it, it's how do we develop a whole system? How do we work with growers? How do we work with everybody in the supply chain to create something that is economically viable, meaning that it's viable for each person along that supply chain so that we can actually build a significantly sized solution. We can build another leg to the protein conversation that doesn't exist today. So I think that's inside our DNA and probably quite differentiated than others out there. Maybe it's because of our backgrounds. We all come from large scale food manufacturing. So we're aware of the importance of understanding that supply chain and designing it properly in a way that can actually truly scale. Maybe the other difference and advantage is the fact that we're located down in the other part of the world. We're located in this country called New Zealand that everybody is familiar with because of Lord of the Rings and Hobbits. But it does give us an advantage because it allows us to think differently than anybody else. So from a technology point of view, from a product point of view, we have continued to go back to fundamentals and completely rethink how we approach this problem. That's probably our biggest strength and one of the reasons this team down here has been able to do what many people have tried. What I talk about is not new in terms of the desire to isolate Rubisco. We've been actually able to do it, and now we have products that are in market that you can buy.
You mentioned that you have an ingredient product as well. So a lot of food tech startups are looking at partnering with larger size CPG firms, ingredient firms. How are you approaching co-development and partnerships?
Probably in a very similar way. We have the privilege of having really long-standing relationships with many of these large CPG companies because of our histories. These conversations also take a lot of time. That's actually why you see that dual-pronged approach of us having our consumer product that's able to generate revenue early while we work with these larger companies to develop solutions for them and prove those solutions and go through those stages of working with those companies from technical proof points to marketing proof points to market access to building out enough capacity to actually supply them. Everyone in the industry is really familiar with all of the challenges that are involved in that, and it takes time. Incredibly excited about is the traction that we're having in that space right now. To see this Rubisco protein able to replace eggs, not just egg white, but whole eggs, the emulsification characteristics, the gelling characteristics, and the rise, the foaming, almost unbelievable for me to actually see Rubisco replacing that from a functionality point of view. I've worked with proteins my entire life, and I just probably didn't imagine that it would be possible for a new protein to do all of that. To see the excitement with bakery companies and what that means for them in terms of alleviating supply chain concerns, actually having a product that is competitive from a price point of view, so like we can offer savings in that category, is really exciting. At exactly the same time, to see us going into dairy applications, into plant-based milks and increasing mouthfeel, increasing foaming, the breadth of what Rubisco can do for a relatively early stage protein, purely from a technical point of view, is incredibly exciting for me.
I bet. And the flavor profile, how would you describe it?
Neutral.
It's very neutral.
Our B2B ingredient is a product that we then purify a little bit more, and it is plain. It's neutral. Been sitting with FoodTechs in America last week, and there wasn't even a conversation about how plain and neutral it is, which is what is needed in that space. Like, that's what we need to be able to use an ingredient in a wide range of applications.
You certainly can drive to consumer liking, but also so many more applications, right? If it has a neutral flavor, your partners don't have to worry about masking and such. How long have you been with the firm now?
Since the beginning, so a 6-year journey.
And how big is the team?
35 people.
Good sized team. Wonderful. What has surprised you the most?
We've got this far this quickly. Through this whole journey, we've come up to quite significant roadblocks. Every time it's only taken us what's felt like an eternity, but in hindsight, it's probably 3 months of incredibly hard work. And then we've come through that and we've found ourselves in a better position. That's maybe complementary of our team, but it's also very complementary of what we're working with in terms of our raw material and in terms of Rubisco. What we were just touching on in terms of being continually surprised about how we can leverage it and manipulate it to perform in different applications.
How would you describe the culture of your company?
I have an incredible amount of fun. All of our team has an incredible amount of fun. This is one of the most exciting things in my life. And I think that's shared by many people in the team. We get to work on something that could change the food production system. How cool is that? And we get to come and explore, hypothesize, and then prove out in reality very, very quickly on a daily basis. Startups is a sort of weird combination of incredible highs, incredible lows, and emotional roller coaster, a huge amount of hard work. But when you see it start to perform at the end of the day, I think that's where you get the reward. You don't come and join startups if you're not a little bit different from everybody else, I would say. I'm really proud of the team and the culture that we have here, that we just lean into that and we have a lot of fun together. And I put emphasis on this word fun because what it really means is a creative mindset. We have to go back to the absolute fundamentals. We have to rethink problems that others have not been able to solve. In order to do that, you have to have a relaxed mind, because that's a creative mind, a really willingness to explore different options. And it has happened many times in Leaft's journey where we have built something out, we've realized actually that's not working, and we've had to go right back to the drawing board. We've had to go literally back to whiteboards, spend hours upon hours remapping it out on a whiteboard. Okay, if we're going to do this from scratch differently, everything we know now, how would we do that? And just having the confidence as a team to go back to those basics and then move forwards again.
And to not be too attached to the sunk costs, right? The work that's come before.
Exactly.
Being open to, oh, well, this didn't work. What do we learn from it? And applying that to moving forward. And I think large companies often really struggle with that because the cost of failure can be high. If it's a perceived failure, somebody didn't go as planned, they're looking for heads to roll, right? In certain cases. So different kind of environment in the startup world. What's next for your company?
We've proven that the system can work. We've proven that Rubisco can actually be isolated to a quality that enables it to be used in these applications, that it has superior nutritional profile and superior functionality. The next part of the journey is twofold. It's about starting to scale that, both on our consumer side as well as on our B2B ingredient side. We are still just scraping the surface of Rubisco, but also the other 4,000 compounds that we are isolating out of those green leaves at the same time, which we call them co-products today, and they go into different directions. There's a plethora of highly nutritional potential there in terms of the types of compounds that we're isolating, and starting to explore those and starting to bring them towards humans. That's also really exciting. We can share more about that in the future. There's some really exciting opportunities around the corner. And I think this is almost like version 1, right? Like you're looking at the company that's figured out how to build the first version of anything. And the first version is epic, but it is still version 1. That's worth keeping in mind. It's only going to get bigger from here.
You've got additional innovation in your pipeline, which sounds great. But you mentioned having strong yield per hectare for Rubisco. So tell me about your mission, how sustainability or that underpins sustainability connect to the work that you're doing.
I mean, it's completely fundamental for us. For ourselves, this is really driven by the ability to develop a system that has a 97% lower carbon footprint than a comparable food production system that we're familiar with, like dairy, for example, and a system that's producing far more protein per hectare of land. This is deeply important to us as a company. When we talk about products, is to make the best product that we can possibly make from a technical point of view, from a nutrition, from a mouthfeel, from a functionality. When we flip and look at it from a consumer lens, sustainability will be incredibly important to some of those consumers, but actually we believe that products succeed when they are tangibly better in front of the consumer. The benefit we get from that scale is satisfying that mission for ourselves. As 10 years from now, when I drive across the Canterbury Plains or I look over the Canterbury Plains, I want to see it looking significantly different than what it looks like today. And that's an example of where I live at the moment, but we could take that and apply it to any region in the world. The exciting thing is that this solution has a real chance of actually delivering on that within the next 10 years.
That's helpful to know that it's suitable for different growing regions and is scalable geographically.
Yeah, we're working with growers. We've carried out trials in Australia, North America, and Ireland. A lot of work has been done. So you can imagine all of those regions, which, like I said, those Goldilocks zones that are really good at growing a lot of green leafy material. We work with alfalfa. So anywhere that you've seen lucerne or alfalfa growing before, then this solution is suitable.
So where do you see the broader food tech sector going over the next 5 to 10 years?
I guess an interesting question. Has faced an incredible amount of headwind in the last couple of years. It's an exciting time in food tech. We have had a plethora of investment, which has created enthusiasm. It has explored new options and solutions. Not all of those options and solutions turned out to work very well. And now we're evolving into that stage 2, where it's a consolidation, taking all of that excitement and enthusiasm and boiling it down to solutions that are more viable, that will scale. This point in time, although I think for many in the industry, when I listen to the narrative out there, it sounds a bit dire, this isn't a really important part of that journey. Out of this period of time, I think we will look back and recognize that this is when some of the true change was actually occurred or was starting to get built.
Is it because it has been so tough that you think that deeper learning has taken place, or are there other factors?
Yeah, because only in those tough environments, the access to capital has definitely changed. That is just not as accessible as it was 5 years ago. That means good solutions rise to the top, and it forces the whole industry to really critique the approach, the logic, what it takes, what consumers are truly interested in, what they were prepared to pay for, and makes all of these considerations real and tangible, which forces companies to think very carefully about how they build and how they scale and what solutions they do that with, which I think is cool. I think that's a great thing. I think it's an awesome period of time. Not everyone will agree with me. I know that, and some of the listeners will maybe have different opinions. That's my opinion at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it was easy, but necessity is the mother of invention. You have to get creative when you have limited options. So I think that fits in with what you were saying about your culture. I've enjoyed our conversation. I know we've got a promo code we're going to share when we put out the episode so people can try Leaft Blade. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the listeners, Ross?
Check out our Leaft Blade. We've got a promo code, FoodTech, all caps, and that'll give you a discount on our product. Incredibly excited to actually showcase Rubisco and bring it to the world in multiple formats. If you're interested in this, reach out to us both on the ingredient side as well as on the product on the consumer side. Try our product, give us feedback, interact with our socials. That would be incredibly powerful, exciting, and motivating for us. We love interacting with customers. Anyone out there in the food tech industry, it's a cool time to be in food. There's a lot that's actually changing. I think there's a plethora of opportunity right now out there.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the time. I enjoyed our conversation, Ross.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of Food Tech Stories. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly episodes. I'm your host, Megan Thomas, founder of Ladris 17. Food Tech Stories is edited by TJG Media.